All right, welcome everyone to today's session on Activity Building 101. There's a lot to go through, so honestly, I might try and talk a bit fast, but if there's anything that you guys miss or if you want me to slow down, just let me know. And yeah, if there's any questions, feel free to just raise your hand or you can throw it in the chat and then I'll pause intermittently and answer a bunch of questions as we go along here. Yeah, today the agenda is looking like I'll do some icebreaking news, which is what I do for all of these sessions. I kind of cover like a piece of news that is kind of worth discussing with this group. And then the bulk of the session today will be a build along with me. And yeah, I've prepped 3 different examples. They're examples a bit more on the complicated side. So just keep in mind, like when you're making your own activities, they don't have to be this complex, but I wanted to show you all like how deep in the weeds with Flint you can get with it. And then we'll do a quick overview of the activity analytics, how to manage submissions, how to view student responses. And then finally, we'll have some time, hopefully, for everyone to kind of share what they're thinking about building or what they've already tried out and share any feedback with our team as well. Great. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and get started. But just a reminder, the recording will be available later. Questions are welcome. Just raise your hand, throw it in the chat. And yeah, for today's ice-breaking news, I kind of wanted to address like overall all of the news that's been happening about ChatGPT's new study mode. Yeah, some people have asked us like, oh, like this feels like on the same path as what Flint is doing. Like, how do you feel about that now that like big companies are kind of pursuing this? I think, yeah, Google also launched a guided learning tool in Gemini. And yeah, Business Insider is saying education becomes a new battlefield in the AI war between OpenAI and Google. Yeah, overall, I think like our team feels that, we're finally seeing the industry, the larger industry, moving in this direction of supporting education and having AI, generative AI in a way that doesn't just spit out like a bunch of information and a bunch of answers, typically is what students are looking for. But, we still think like there's a lot more to be done, and we're trying to do that at Flint. Like the industry is still like lacking in data privacy. There's not a lot of regulation there. It's also mostly targeted towards older students. College age is what OpenAI is targeted towards. There's like no teacher or admin oversight because it's very like siloed in the usage. And yeah, that also means that teachers and students, they're not all operating in the same space where they can collaborate and like talk through different sorts of initiatives that they're trying with the same sort of platform. So yeah, overall, we think it's like a good sign that everyone is realizing that this is a very productive and applicable use of AI. So I don't know, I'm excited to see where this continues to go. Yeah, if you all try it out and find that it does things that you want to see in Flint, or if there's anything that you find that it does that you don't like, let us know. That sort of feedback is always helpful for us. But yeah. Okay. Without further ado, I'll jump into the build with me section. I've prepared 3 different examples, one science one research one, and then one for lower schools, because that's kind of what the people who wanted to come to the session were requesting. If there's anything that you want to see later on in the session, if we have time, I can like work through some like ad hoc with you all. But yeah, that's what I have prepared for today. So yeah, first I'll jump into this like physics problem practice activity. Yeah, where students can use Flint as a guide for student practice is what that's supposed to say. But essentially, let me see, can I copy this? Okay, I should have put this in the other. Put this. Let me just escape this really quickly. Okay, and I'll copy this part. But yeah, I'm gonna hop into Flint and we're gonna make an activity. So in this session, I'm not gonna be covering chats as much, but this is kind of like chats are kind of like your own personal built-in chatbot where you can use it as a brainstorming partner. You can use it to like generate lesson plans, all that. That's like not as much of the you creating things for students part of Flint. Um, if people are interested, we can do a um, session on chats specifically in the future. But usually I'm getting more questions about activities. It's a bit more of the bread and butter of the platform. So that's why we're covering that today. So yeah, for activities, you just need to scroll down on the home page here. And there's a bunch of different options for getting started. So like for this one, I could choose, to give students problem solving practice, but I'm just going to go ahead and create a custom activity because I have the prompts written. And from here, I'll just paste this in and we can get started. And while that's like generating that first response there, I did just want to note, like, I actually had the Flint chats help me craft the prompts for these examples that I made. I think something that people kind of forget about is like AI, is AI, and it's actually surprisingly good at prompting itself. So here's like just the chat that I used, but essentially I went through and I said like, hey, I'm trying to create some activities that serve as examples of broad applications. And then I gave it like the sorts of things that I wanted to cover with each of them. And then it was able to help me like brainstorm some things. And then I workshopped with it some more and we went back and forth. I took some of its suggestions. I scrapped some of its suggestions. So yeah, that's just like kind of a way that you could also use Flint as a brainstorming partner there. But yeah, coming back to the actual activity creation, um, when you're creating it with Flint, really I mostly work in this activity builder chat on the left hand side here. And in this, you can put in anything that you want Flint to do. Usually it's best to describe some context about your students, what activity it is that you want them to create, and then, oh, I forgot to upload the worksheet, but yeah, and then add any additional context around what it is that they're learning. So here I'm going to go ahead and also add the worksheet. So I'm going to add an attachment, and then here I can attach any files from my computer, which you unfortunately can't see right now. I'm just going to add that there. This is just a worksheet with free body diagram problems, and I'm just giving that to Flint to give it a sense of what sorts of problems it might be working through with students. And in this activity, actually, let's see. Yeah, I want it to give students a fresh whiteboard to start for each question, and I want it to help the students through these specific questions. So someone asked in the registration for the session whether or not you could like use existing materials in Flint. You definitely can. You can like put in your own worksheets, have it work on those specific problems. You could also put in your worksheets and have it generate new problems based off of that content and then administer that to students. So yeah, I actually definitely recommend like putting in as much of your own content as possible because then Flint kind of knows like the level of questions that it should be addressing with students, what sort of formatting it should be in. So even if it's just like a reference for Flint, that's great. Yeah, so it said that it'll update the activity to use my worksheet and give students a fresh whiteboard for each problem. And then finally, I'm just going to ask it to, let students know that they can screenshot and paste any of those like base diagrams or questions into a whiteboard in Flint and annotate on it. And that's how they can interact with this activity. Yeah, the whiteboard you might need to like demonstrate to your students. So I'll also demonstrate it to you right now. But it's one of the new-ish features in Flint that allow students to interact more visually with the tool. But yeah, so I could keep going on and like give it more specific feedback. But I first actually want to preview it. So on this right-hand side here is the session preview. And here you can try out the activity that you're building so far. So I can simulate it and it gives me some options based on like how I want it to look per student. I'll show you guys this in a little bit, but I'm gonna try it out manually first actually. I usually recommend to teachers that they try both because sometimes the simulation one is a bit of like it's almost like too streamlined of a flow for students, almost like an ideal student going through it. So trying it out manually, pretending to be your student is also highly recommended. But yeah, so in here, it's showing me what the initial students or what the initial message the students will get is. And what I can do now is, oh, I can go back to this tab. I can, screenshot any of the screenshot any of the questions that I want to work on as a student. So I'm choosing number 4 right here. And then I can come back into Flint and I can click add. And then here are like a bunch of the different tools that students can use to communicate with Flint. So, there's like a document, they can write code, add links, input math equations, but I'm going to choose this whiteboard option. And then I can paste in any images here. And then from here, I can just start like drawing my response. So then I'll just say like, this is the force of gravity. And I'm not going to do anything else and see if it catches me. Yeah, so this is where you can like test Flint for accuracy, test how it actually will give students feedback and support them. And then from there, based on what you see in the session preview, you can always ask for more change inside here. Yeah, so it's saying like, great start. You've identified the gravitational force pointing down. However, like there's more to consider, blah, blah, blah. What force do you think is missing? So yeah, like this might look good to you, but you can also give it more feedback and like hone in on this more. I'll show you in the next couple examples how to do more of that. But for now, yeah, whenever you're happy with what it looks like, you can click create activity. And then from here, you can move it into one of your class groups if your school has that set up. But really the most important thing here is you can copy the link, send it to students, and they can start interacting with it. Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
I'm just curious if you can clarify best practices on like when you create an activity that might be used in multiple classes. I'm very confused about whether I should put it in one class or a parent group, and am I duplicating multiple copies of activities? It gets very clunky in the interface as a teacher trying to manage that.
Yeah, very good question. So we have like a couple of options for that. Depending on how you set up your classes, you might have, let me show you. I do agree that we're still trying to figure out a better way to do this, but there's like ownership of activities and everything to work through. So if you have any suggestions, please let us know. But from what I've seen, teachers sometimes have a like umbrella group, and then under that they might have different groups of students in different classes, or maybe it's like different levels of students that they're covering with that class. So if you want all of the student submissions to be in one activity, there's some perks there of it, like summarizing all of the analytics across the different classes for you. And then also like, there's only one link that you have to manage. Then I would just put it in like the top level group and just share out one activity with students. But if you want the activity submissions to be separate, and in that you get analytics for the activity for the separate classes, and then also you have like all of the sessions separated, then I would duplicate the activity and then put one in each group. So for example, I'm going to go back to my activities and find the one that we just made, this free body diagram practice. And then in the share activity option, this was what popped up earlier, I can like move this into 9th grade world history, or yeah, I have like a section A, section B. I can put this one in section A, update that. I would recommend making your group names more specific than just section A and B so it's easier to find. But then I can, so this one's in the first one, and then if I want to put it in another one, I would duplicate it, and then I can put it into section B. So now there's 2 copies of it, one in section A, one in section B.
If you were to update anything in one, those would not go back and forth, though. That's one of the challenges, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So then I would suggest updating one and then just duplicating it to the
Yeah.
other section again. Yeah. And then you could hide one of the older versions from the group.
Yeah.
So then just in the share activity, right now it says open to section B in terms of visibility. Then you can do it like private or unlisted and then remove any of the students that have used it so far so that they're not seeing it.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying. I have future questions, but not for this forum when you're focusing on making activities. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. All good. Yeah, Hadley? Oh, I think you're still muted.
Hi, I'm Hadley. I teach 5th grade. So I have 2 questions. So can we copy that link into Google Classroom, or do I need to have my students have their like a Flint website like on their Chromebook and then they go into Flint directly?
Yeah, so Flint is accessed through a website, but you can copy the link and put it into Google Classroom, and the students can click on it and then log in through that way. And then we have single sign-on set up, so I'm not sure if your students have like Google or Microsoft accounts.
They do have Google accounts.
Okay, awesome. Then if they're already logged into their Google account, it'll bring them directly into the activity, so they don't have to like remember any usernames or passwords or anything.
Okay. Okay, so then, so they're in Google Classroom, they're doing the activity, so then the Sparky follows them into Google Classroom. Like, are they able to get that feedback just through the link? Or I guess I'm a little confused on sort of the basic setup.
Yeah, so the feedback will also be in Flint. Let me show you an example of what the feedback looks like. I'll dive into the analytics more in specific a little later. But this one, okay. So when the students have finished their activity, let me use this one as an example. There's an option to submit. So I would just remind them to submit that session, and then it'll start to generate the session analytics shown here. Yeah, and then that will like give them the feedback of like what they did well, where they could improve. And then it also gives you an option as a teacher to add any additional feedback on top of that.
Okay, so just putting the link into Google Classroom will get them into Flint, and then they have all the things that I've created in Flint available to them.
Yes. Well, depending on which link you share, you can share the link to Flint in general, and then they'll have to navigate in Flint to find which activity that you want them to do in that moment.
Okay.
Or if you share the link to the specific activity, then it'll bring them to that page, and then they can start using it automatically.
Okay. So some teachers might just put in Google Classroom the Flint link, and then the kids kind of get used to going in there and doing different activities.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, and then one more note, if your students use iPads, I've seen a lot of lower school teachers like put up QR codes and then they can scan it, and then it's really easy for them so that they don't have to go to Google Classroom, find the link, and then click on it and then all that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, Preeti?
I had a question. So now, if I wanted to also share the rubric with this assignment, right? How would I do that? Because I was trying it yesterday and we had teachers who ran into problem.
Yeah, did it give them the message of like the content?
File size was big. That's what it said.
See, okay, yeah, I think there was a bug in the platform that we fixed yesterday, so I think maybe you all used it like before that was fixed. But if you try it again and it's still not working, please let me know. If you could send me the file, that'd be great, and then I can also test it on my end. Yeah,
Okay.
but yeah, I'll show you actually in this next example what it looks like to like upload a rubric and use that and everything. So perfect segue. Awesome, cool. Okay, so yeah, one more question from Sally, and then I'll like do the next one. Go ahead, Sally.
Hello, thank you for doing this. I really like doing Flint alongside you and toggling back and forth. the question that I have is, once I've started giving things to an activity, how do I then go back and see kind of what's in the activity's memory, like what it's keeping? It'll say if the chat's run out and I don't know, did it stop remembering things? So and what about, I might design an activity and then come back 3 months later and I don't know what I've kind of fed it.
Yeah. So actually, we have updated this very recently, but it remembers the chat that you had with it previously. So let me go back to the activity that I just made, or I guess not this one, the original one, which is, oh, okay, this one. I think it would be in both though, but if you go back into the activity settings here, now it'll load the chat that you've had so far with Flint. And so you can see like what sorts of prompts you put in, how it responded, all of the edits that you've made. And then of course, on top of that, there's also the option to like manually look at all the settings. So far I've just been using Build with Sparky because that's a lot simpler. It's like conversational, and it'll like do the prompt engineering bits for me really. But you know, if you're really like into prompt engineering or you want things to be like done in a very specific way, then you can go to build manually, and then these are all of the settings that are applying to this activity. So we have like overview settings, settings about Flint's behavior, language that it's conducted in, grading rubric, and some assignment details. Yeah, it might be good actually to just like look through what these build manually settings are, just to familiarize yourself with like what Flint can do. Because sometimes like teachers don't realize that you can, you know, set a deadline or set a timer to different activities. So yeah, that's how you can like look at both what you've chatted with Sparky about before and also what is like currently in that activity. Yeah, cool. Okay, really good questions, guys. But yeah, very excited to show you all the next, what am I doing? The next activity here. And so, but oh, to recap, yeah, in example one, we kind of covered how Flint can be a guide for student practice, and how you can do set practice directly from worksheet. But of course, you can also make new practice. You can say like, hey, make practice similar to this worksheet, but not the same because this is my actual quiz and I don't want students to like get those specific questions. Or you can just say like, you know, have students practice free body diagrams. Flint has like enough knowledge about free body diagrams because like that's like a very commonly covered topic. So you don't even have to upload anything, but yeah, the upload just gives Flint an easier understanding of like how you want the actual questions to be formatted. But yeah, for this next one, I prepped this example for high school research. Also, let me actually share these slides with you all in case anyone wants to copy the exact questions and prompts. But yeah, so for this one, I'm going to ask Sparky to have 11th grade students tell you what historical event they're researching for a paper and upload some primary sources and then guide them to evaluate source credibility without giving direct answers. So this might be like a activity that you give your students as they prep to do a paper, or maybe even like the DPQ questions in various like AP history courses. But essentially here, I'm going to go back to the homepage, scroll down again, create custom activity, and then paste that in. And then again, of course, Flint will go ahead and write all of the base settings for me, and spin up an activity that I can start trying out and editing. And yeah, so for this one, I'm going to cover like how to upload rubrics and additional background information, and then also giving Sparky a persona. So this is like one of the like big tips that I share with people. Like if Flint isn't kind of coaching in the way you want it to, or if it's like being too helpful, sometimes giving it a persona can really help in that. So yeah, I will show you what sorts of prompts I put in here to get it to do that. But yeah, here, you know, it's a great idea. I'll create a source credibility evaluation activity for 11th grade students. Again, being specific about like who your students are and what you want them to cover and how you want Sparky to act with them is very important. And then here I'm going to upload the rubric. This one is actually a AP DBQ rubric. And then I just said like, make sure their research will give them sufficient content to analyze in their DBQ essay to do well based on the rubric. So I'm not telling it to grade them based on this rubric, which in some activities you might want it to do. I'm saying like, make sure that in the research that you're doing with them, that they cover all their bases so that they can like write a good essay. It's kind of different from like the actual essay where all of the resources are given to them. In this one, I'm like having students collect the resource and then write it. So yeah. Okay, and then so Flint can read that and yeah, it says, let me read the content. And now it's like updating the requirements based on that. Again, like, or actually to touch on this attachment aspect, when you click there, you can look at all of the previous attachments that you've either created with Flint or uploaded yourself. So this is like the DBQ rubric that I just did. If you're creating activities based on some of the same materials, then you can like select a bunch of them and put it into a new activity. So that's to say like you can reuse things that you've uploaded to Flint through here. But we also connect to Google Drive and Microsoft OneDrive. So once you connect that account, you can pull anything from one of your Google Drive accounts. This is also kind of new. Teachers used to have to like download and then upload again, but now we like connect directly to Google Drive, and then here you can like search for whatever it might be that you want to upload and pull that into Flint. Yeah, so now it's updated the requirements to ensure student source analysis will prepare them for DBQ success. Yeah, and of course, like it gives you a lot of like reasoning for why it's designed it that way. And then I'm going to actually ask it to both suggest 1 to 2 new sources that students should look for to round out their research. Students may choose to take these suggestions or not. I'm just like giving it that heads up. And then I'm also going to say, here's the persona part, but make sure you play the role of an inquisitive and critically thinking junior research assistant who needs guidance from the student. So, typically Sparky would be the one who is guiding the student. That's just like the default that we have. But here I actually wanted to flip its persona. It's the one who is asking questions and requesting guidance and all that. Yeah. Yeah. Sally is asking, so every resource added to the activity building chat over multiple sessions is saved and remembered/consulted by Sparky. It is saved. It's not remembered per se. So if you want Sparky to use it in like a new session or a new activity, I would re-upload it. Yeah, AI has like a memory cap still where it can only process so much information at once. So honestly, we wish we could do that where it can like analyze absolutely everything that you've ever uploaded, but that would probably break the platform. But yeah, and then the second thing was Sparky can go and read attached Google Docs. Yes, yeah. So if you like upload anything there, we're essentially before like if you copy and pasted a Google Doc link, Sparky doesn't have like its own Google account, so it can't like go in and look at it. And that was like a big pain point for the teachers. So now that you can like directly integrate your Google Docs, Sparky now has access. You can have Sparky look at anything in your Google Drive there. Great. Okay. So yeah. So this activity, I won't do the manual one here. I'll like simulate it for you. Let's say like a developing one, just to show you what the simulation looks like. But essentially, students will be talking about what it is that they're researching, what sorts of, and then it can use Sparky as a brainstorming partner to figure out what sorts of materials and primary resources it should be looking at. So this is kind of what the preview looks like, where Sparky plays its own role, And then it'll also generate student messages on the side too. And honestly, this is not the best example because I don't think the session preview can like pull in external resources, which is what students would be doing in this activity. But it is like a good way to get a very quick idea of what sorts of interactions would be in this activity and how like the conversation might flow. And then you can also see a sample of what sorts of analytics Flint would generate for the student. So I chose like a developing one. So there's like some strengths and areas of improvement that it's covering with the student. But yeah, you can also try it out as like a student who's like just beginning or like a student who's doing excellent. So yeah, there's like, you can see the range of how students might do in this activity and how Flint responds to each of them differently. Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, Sally, sorry. So they're saved in a way, but you do need to reattach them so that Sparky knows which one to access. So the reason that it's actually faster if you reattach from something that you've already uploaded, because with each attachment that you upload into Flint, it has to analyze it and then it actually converts it into text or tokens, that is the technical term, that Flint can evaluate and use. So for example, if you upload an image, it's writing a description of the image that Flint can then use in its analysis. So it saves that description, but not every session has access to that description. So that's why you have to like reattach it to the activity or to the chat that you're having so that it is so that it's actually accessing that information. Does that make sense? Okay. How does that work with a standing activity? What do you mean by standing activity? Like one that you've already shared with students or?
So my students are department chairs, and they do observations of faculty twice a year, and we use Danielson. And I want to have a Danielson tutor where I upload a bunch of resources on Danielson, and anytime all year department chairs do an observation, they can go in. It's a group activity. They can all see each other's responses. They can upload an observation and say, can you evaluate this? How well am I using Danielson? So I don't know, like they would do it here and there all year. I wouldn't know when I should be reattaching it.
I see. Okay. So once you've put it into an activity, that activity has access to it. So that's why I would like suggest you create an activity for the teachers rather than just having the teachers go into chats and describe that. Because the activities are like programmed by you already and have that context. So once you've put it into an activity, then Sparky will have access to that and continually access that as it's giving teachers feedback. Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Understood. Thank you for explaining also. Yeah, any questions about this example before I move on to the next one? Oh, okay. So the final example here, oh, right, sorry, but just to recap, we like showed how to upload relevant rubrics and include sort of that sort of background information. And then we also gave Sparky a persona in this one, but of course you can get like even more fun with the persona, which I'll show in the next one. So here's the lower school example. So we're gonna make a role play that is personalized to student interests. And here I am asking it to make a fun role play activity where second graders chat with a zookeeper and practice basic addition and subtraction. And then the personalization part is I want to have students share their favorite animal first, and then Sparky will create a personalized story-based math quest featuring that animal with encouraging feedback. So let me create this activity again. Yeah, make sure to click create activity, by the way, otherwise it won't save. I know some teachers have been kind of bummed about that in the past. But yeah, so coming back to the home page, scrolling down again, clicking create custom activity. from here, I will paste in that prompt that I just read out. And yeah, so I will say, like, for lower school students, there are some like specific tips that we have for using Flint. On our website, while it's loading, I'll just show you all this. We have all of the webinar recordings from a while back, and back in December, we did a session for lower schools. And I'll go ahead and share this in the chat here, but we covered some like more specific like tips for lower schools in that session. We'll probably have a session again this year because, you know, Flint has changed a bit and there's new teachers, and yeah, so we'll probably be like doing a lot of those sessions again. But on that webinars page, which I'll also share in the chat here, is like a great place to go find like maybe a session specific to your subject or one specific to like how you want to use Flint. And that's like a good place to like get started. In every session, I like introduce the topic, walk through some examples, and then in a lot of those also we have other teachers sharing their experience. So it's also really cool to hear from them. Yes. So Craig said, I have a left field question. I have teachers in grade 11 and 12, IB, with PSD. Is that PTSD towards AI? They say if a student uploads an essay for feedback in AI, ChatGPT was mentioned, the plagiarism platform they use flags it when they run the checks. Is uploaded content locally run on your servers, or is it publicly read? So are you asking if the content that is uploaded here is shared like more publicly on the internet?
Yeah, I'm wanting to know if, so the claim is that if it's put into ChatGPT, it then becomes part of the public domain, and when Turnitin does a check for plagiarism, it flags it as plagiarized. I find that strange, because if it is like if you log into an account, that should be private. Or so I don't know. I didn't do a check into it whether it's the student was being fully honest, and if they had in fact only uploaded it there. But yeah, I'm just wondering, because a wonderful way to use it is to build a rubric into the into a chat, and then allow students to be able to upload their work and get some feedback on it. But this is a serious concern with the upper school. If kids are uploading their work, but then it's been flagged as plagiarized because it was uploaded. So I don't know how it would work that the essay would be read or made public, especially in a closed, locally run loop or closed system. I don't know if you have any insights.
Yeah, I mean, great left field question. I feel like we could do a whole session on this, but I'll like try and give you like a quick rundown of my understanding of how all this works, at least. So ChatGPT, if you pay for it, you have the option to opt out of it using anything that you upload in its own training data. I don't think it like shares it publicly on the internet, but I also don't know how OpenAI like deals with their own data. So that might just be enigma to all of us. But yeah, it's true that like if you're uploading to ChatGPT, if you haven't like set those settings properly, and sometimes if you're not paying for it, it might be like taking that content and using it elsewhere. But I think Turnitin actually uses like a different sort of system where it's kind of trying to determine if the pattern of words is more likely to be generated by AI. And our team has some bones to pick with the system, I think, just because like there's also studies that have been done that show like, you know, for English as a second language learners, what they write, because, you know, they learned English like not in the like community natural way, what they write is often more often flagged from Turnitin because the way that they've learned is like very like regimented, you know, which is what Turnitin is looking for. So long story short, I don't think ChatGPT's uploads are directly linked to Turnitin, but I can see like how that is like, I mean, it's not exactly clear how all of that information is traveling. But what I can say for Flint is we don't train any of our own AI models. Whatever you upload stays within your Flint workspace. And we're like not giving that to Turnitin. We actually believe that like AI detection is like kind of a losing game because AI is only going to get better. So what we're trying to promote is better sort of activities like the ones that we're walking through today, where we're really showing the students' thinking process and the students have to like demonstrate their mastery rather than just like, you know, showing up with an end product, not really knowing where that came from.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I've also read the research on Turnitin. They have a couple of things. For instance, they say they can detect where the AI has been used. My response is they can detect the obvious AI. I'm pretty sure I could game the system and bypass it. I have my own strategies that I think would work. So I know, and I also know the research that depending on the ethnic groups, certain ethnic groups are flagged way higher than others. So it is not a reliable system at all. But it is helpful to, like, I didn't check. I've stopped using ChatGPT. I use Grok and Flint mostly now. So I haven't checked through I used to pay for ChatGPT. I don't remember the settings at all. So that's actually a very good point. And I think even if it's run through the training data, I'm sure that training data is probably in some way accessible. So that would make sense. But it is interesting to hear what you say about the pattern recognition, which then for most of my students, because the vast majority are second language learners in Southeast Asia, most of them would probably have a hard time having their work flagged. So I also do agree. I think the whole thing of, like, the one thing that AI has is one issue in education that AI has is that it's changing the way we need to assess, to look for like deeper learning as opposed to the rudimentary stuff which AI can do. And I think educations are too slow. It's too slow to move. But I really like, I agree, the sort of helpful activity that we can create within it is a much more powerful tool, and it's much more meaningful for the students as well.
Yeah. I have a video for you. I'll share it at the end, which is like kind of related to this. But we do have like 15 minutes left, so I will quickly go through this and like we can continue chatting after I have extra time. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up though. It's like really good food for thought. Okay, but yes, so back to this activity for the students and their zookeeper friend. Yeah, so in this activity, Flint's going to be playing the role of a zookeeper. Okay, so it's Zookeeper Sam this time around. But yeah, I'm going to also ask it to allow students to speak and write their responses or write their answers and then listen and read responses. This is one of the things that's great for lower school students who are like still getting the hang of typing and like reading bigger blocks of text. So you can actually have Flint read aloud to them, and then they can also like speak their answers to the activity. So these are like options that you can allow for them. And then I'm also going to, because I know that this is probably going to happen, I'm also going to say like make your messages a bit shorter so that young learners are not overwhelmed by how much they need to read, including the initial message. Because I think, yeah, if we start this session manually right now, we can see like, even the first message is like a decent bit of text, especially if we're using this with like second, first, or third graders even. So I'm just going to go ahead and send that as well. Yeah, so you can definitely ask Flint to level the reading, make it like more or less. Sometimes it's just like a matter of like tweaking that around a bit. Yeah, and then I'm also, I think, so I won't show the testing, but you can test this out manually. And some of the things that I saw were that I do need to ask it to like, I need to guide it in how I want it to give students feedback. So I'm sure if we tested it right now, it might just like go ahead and say like, oh, the answer is actually this, and then move on. But I actually want it to, you know, like if students get an answer wrong, I want the students to try again. And I say like, don't give hints yet or show the solution. But essentially this allows it. So like if a student really gets stuck, they can like say that and then Flint will help. But it'll just say like, hey, this is not quite right. Do you want to try that again? And then sometimes it says like, you know, you can count on your fingers or something like that. But yeah, and then I'm also going to say, after solving 5 math problems, write an image prompt that shows off the storytelling within the session. Write a basic prompt and ask the students if they want to add anything, then generate the image. So this is like just adding like a fun part to the end of the activity where the students can like get a customized image of the story that they've written with the AI through math somehow. And yeah, they'll get like an image of that and just like for fun, and then they can like add additional things to it. Yeah, so I'm just like adding all of those things here. What I'm doing here, actually, I would not fully suggest where I'm like combining different prompts into one message. I would actually send these two separately, but just for the sake of time today, I'm just gonna like combine it. But usually I would say building up an activity gradually is better, because then you can find out like at which step, like maybe the prompting needs to be clearer or you need to be like more strict with your emphasis on something. Yeah, so I would actually send each of these one by one, but again, for the interest of time, I'll just send them all together. And then here we can like start trying out the session manually. But I'm actually going to show you a session that I did when I was testing this yesterday, just because then we don't have to wait for it to generate. Ooh, spoiler. But yeah, so here is kind of what that session looked like. So I said like, it asked like, what's your favorite animal? I said kiwis. And then it starts giving me all these math problems. And then whenever I don't quite get it right, it's like giving me a little bit of hint, but not too much. So it's like, remember, 3 plus 4 is what? Yeah, and then it goes back and forth with me for 5 questions. And like we talk about daytime naps and blueberries and how the kiwi birds are super fluffy. And then finally it says you completed all 5 math adventures. Time for a special celebration. I'll create a magical image of your kiwi friends. What would you like me to add in the picture? And I said berries with friends and sunglasses. So then it created this final image for me and said like, great job on being a math explorer today. So yeah, Flint can generate images, and yeah, you can incorporate that into your activities. So this is like one way to do it. You can also, I've seen like examples for like world language where Flint generates activities and then students have to describe it in the language that they're trying to learn. But there's like a bunch of different varieties there for how it can look. Yes, Hadley, I'll get to your question in a second. I also see Sally has a question in the chat. She said, when we build an activity up gradually, what happens when we get a limited context message? I see. So actually, the limited context just means that it won't remember stuff earlier on in the chat, but you can still interact with it. I guess I would like try and be more like specific with what you're building out. If you find that like you took a bunch of turns to get somewhere in the end, you could always like create a new activity and start from scratch so that there's not that limited context. And then you've like learned already like how you should be prompting it. So you could probably write like a more concise pathway to getting Flint to be where you want. But I think functionally it's like not that big of a problem because with every message that you're sending to this builder chat, you can see like it's actually editing the guidelines. So the limited context will just be like, it won't necessarily remember like the very first message that you sent, but it's already in the guidelines. So you don't have to like, it's kind of okay if it doesn't remember like 40 message ago what you said because it's already written in the guidelines. But you know, I would say like for like a more holistic and like when it's like making additional edits, for it to understand the full context, it would be best if maybe you create a new activity, but you can also try it out. And I think like as long as it's previewing well as you try the session out manually, then it should be okay. Because that limited context isn't going to get passed on to your student sessions or anything. Hopefully that makes sense. Yeah, Hadley, go ahead.
Okay, great. So you had mentioned that you can have the activity reading out loud, and then the students can also speak to it. So in that classroom, we're imagining they have headphones on, and then they're just sort of interacting verbally with or orally with the activity.
Yeah. So we've seen that. I guess if your students can be trusted outside of the classroom, we've also seen teachers be like, okay, take Flint, go for, like find somewhere quiet in the hallway or something for 5 minutes, interact with it, and then come back. Yeah, and then you can even have like students pair up in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's also been really successful for like lower school teachers, where there might be like a Flint station, and then the students can like go around and like interact with it one-on-one, or like multiple students working together on one activity. The only thing that you kind of lose there is like you're not really sure which student is doing the activity because it might be on like your Flint account or it might be like sharing a laptop. But actually, if you have it as a spoken activity, let's see, let me show you really quickly. So like the students can click here to listen to it.
Lulu, it's not coming through right now.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Hold on. Let me.
Leave.
It started and then it stopped. It was like it paused out of it, but yeah.
Okay. I think it's trying to noise cancel a little too effectively. But yeah, you can try it out on your side. That's what the listening looks like. But then when the students respond here, let's say like, I like capybaras. Then what Flint does actually is it records their voice snippet, so you can go back and listen to what exactly they said. And so that's where this like listen button comes in. Yeah, so I know like the language teachers really like that, but also if you're trying to keep track of what students saying what, you can kind of hear their voice. I think eventually like group activities might be the way to go, but we're still trying to figure out how to get that to work.
Okay, and my second question really quickly, and this is kind of a bigger question, but I work with fifth graders, so I can totally see them just trying to put in goofy things to just see what they can generate. Do you have some suggestions for sort of how not to let them get too off track? Because this is a whole new world for them, and so I know there'll be plenty who just want to see what Sparky's going to respond to and try a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so a couple things there. Sorry, I'm like finding the documentation for you. Okay, so we have this document on what sorts of inappropriate messages are flagged in Flint. And so you as the teacher can see what's being flagged for a specific activity. I'll show you that in a second.
Okay.
But also, so there's this piece where it's like actually flagged. There's a piece of Flint knows that it's a teacher and it's not supposed to like entertain certain types of content. Yeah, so it'll like also do that in the conversation with the students. And then also something that we've seen be pretty effective is just like if you tell your students, hey, I can see all of your conversations, and like sometimes you just like pull it up on the board and show them like, hey, this is what like Bobby is talking about right now. They're like, oh.
So it is true. We can see each and every one of their conversations from our home base site or home, where we are.
Yes, exactly. I'll show you an example of that in a second also. But yeah.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And then Anne is saying, can you create a group activity where small groups collaborate together? Would just one student work on the keyboard, or could each student open the link and be lumped together in one group? I think the latter half is what we want to build, but unfortunately, the former half is what we have right now. But yeah, I've seen like students work together in the same activity in a couple of different instances. If we're looking at lower school specifically, I know we have a, it might take a second to find it, but there was a teacher who wrote a guest article for us a while back about how her lower school students used Flint in groups to research endangered animal species. Oh, here it is. I can share this with you. I think she kind of describes like how she set that up in that blog. But yeah, you can like kind of have students all work together on one laptop, or like have them each do individual conversations, and then maybe you just like have an activity in class where they get together and like discuss their findings. But yeah, I do hope that soon we can create group chats in Flint. I think that would be really cool. Yeah, there's just like some logistics to figure out about like when does Sparky respond and like hop in? Is it like when the student requests? But yeah, if you all have any like specific use cases that you want to use that for, please share that with us, and then our team can take that feedback and build something out. Great, okay. Yeah, so I know I kind of had a feeling this might happen. There's like a lot of content that I've prepped for today, but we're like a little short on time, so I'll just like really quickly cover the rest of this. But to summarize, for example 3, we personalize the activity to student interests. We like enabled the speaking and listening for the lower school students. I didn't design step by step, but I would suggest you design step by step. And then you can add fun images at the beginning, at the end, like we did whenever. And then, yeah, you can also adjust for student reading abilities. So, and I put can duplicate here because you could make duplicates of an activity and then make one a bit more complex and then one a bit more simplified, and then like really differentiate for the types of learners that you have in your classroom and send those activities to specific learners. But also Flint will kind of dynamically adjust to them as well. So yeah, there's a lot of options for like how specifically you want to differentiate Flint to students. And if anyone has questions about that, I'm happy to stay a little over and cover that. But let me really quickly run through the activity analytics. So I kind of showed this a bit earlier. We'll just go back to create activity, as always. And then let me go back to the example that I had with some submissions. Is this one? Yes. Okay, so this is, as I was talking with Hadley, where you will see all of the submissions coming in. So at first, let me actually pull up another example to show you what it looks like when it hasn't been used yet, and then I'll show you like the contrast of what it looks like when it has been used. So at first, you don't have any activity analytics yet. The needs attention is still empty, and you have the sessions list that is also empty. But as students start to use it, you'll see their sessions popping up live in this list. And you can see any sessions that are like still in progress and not yet submitted. And then you can also see sessions that are submitted. So yeah, every single message that students send, you can see it's not like only after they share it with you, it's all automatically shared with you. And then if you click into one session, you can see the full transcript of how the students interacted with Flint, and then also the feedback that Flint gave them. And here you can like add additional feedback for them. I'll just say hello here. You can notify them of this additional feedback. You can change their grade, whether they are happy with that or not. So there's like a couple of different options for adding your own feedback into here as well. And then after, beyond the individual sessions, in this overview page with everything here, as the sessions are coming in, Sparky actually evaluates and like will notify you if there's individual students that need attention or need extra help. So here, like it's saying like Jacob is expressing that he doesn't want to participate and mentions having a headache. So these are things that will like pop up live and then will allow you the opportunity to then go like like actually meet with that student in your classroom, or like figure out, like, it's an easier way to figure out which student might need help in the moment. Yeah, from our like classroom observations that we've been to, we see like teachers kind of floating around, but like Flint's like really small on the screen. It's hard to see like what exactly students are talking about. So we added this feature to kind of be like a live dashboard of what's happening, to help teachers out. And then the final piece here is the activity analytics. So once you have 3 or more submissions to your activity, activity analytics will be generated that kind of summarize how all of your students did. So I showed you like the analytics in the individual session. That's like how one specific student did. But the activity analytics here are like how everyone did. If you click on any of these, it'll actually show you like the evidence for why it's saying that. And then you can click into individual student sessions and then see exactly where that piece of feedback is coming from. Cool. Okay. And then let me make this big again now that I don't have to click on things. Yeah, so there's a couple of ways also that you can collaborate with other educators as you're creating activities in Flint. I'll speed through this really quickly, but if there's any questions at the end, I can stay over a bit. But essentially, I kind of showed you how to do this, but you could duplicate an activity and you could actually share that with a teacher rather than like different students. That gives them basically a copy of your activity, and then your original one can't be edited directly, so you like don't have to worry about someone accidentally like overwriting your own changes. You could also though add an owner where you go into share, add them as a member, and then change their status to an owner. And then this way you can co-create an activity and you all are working in the same settings, but then I would just like in real life, communicate with that teacher who's changing what and like when you all should be working on it. Yeah, so that's like how you can work on the same activity. And then finally, we have Flint libraries. These are the 2 like school and public library in the bottom left-hand corner. Here you can publish your activities and then they can either be open to everyone who uses Flint via the public library or everyone at your school via the school library. And then in the libraries, you can also go in there and there will be essentially templates of activities that other people can copy to their workspace and edit and use. So that's just like another way to share what it is that you're making. Okay, cool. So I think, yes, that is everything. I'll quickly do the wrap up, and then if anyone wants to like share out what they're thinking or like what sort of feedback they have, that'd be great. I can stay on a little bit longer. But essentially, I have a fall session calendar coming soon, I promise. Usually I'm like planning these sessions maybe half a week in advance, but I will try and plan them more in advance so people can kind of like plan around their schedules. And also because we've launched a student ambassador program for high school students to come and present at these sessions, talk about what it is that they want, that they've been doing in these courses and how they're using Flint for themselves. So also then like we can plan out which students would share when and all that. But all that to say, these are some of the topics that I'm considering doing again. We've done, I think, yeah, most of them before, but we think like, Flint has changed so much. There's also like a lot more people using Flint compared to a year ago. So we want to do them again and have new people share out what they're doing. So yeah, these are coming soon. If you'd like to share any of these, please let me know. If you think there should be something added to this calendar, also please let me know. That would be very helpful. Yeah, and then all recordings will be posted on our website. I kind of showed you where that is. But if you're here, you'll also get a direct email when that's available. And yeah, so we have a bunch of resources here. The Campfire calendar, you're probably already subscribed if you're here, but in case you want to share with anyone, that's where you'll get notified of new sessions like these that pop up. We do have an Instagram, which will be targeted towards teachers and teaching tips. So if you want to follow us there, that'd be very fun. And then we have the Flint community. This is like a forum plus like tech support kind of place where we're trying to get a bunch of the Flint educators in there, and then you can share ideas, you can like post questions. Our team is like pretty active in there too, but really it's a space for educators by educators to share what it is that they're doing with Flint and gain insights from the whole community. Yeah, okay. That's everything. Sorry again for going 7 minutes over, but I think there was just like a lot of really good content to cover. Yeah, but if anyone has any final questions, oh, I see Sally is asking, if I take an activity from a Flint library, how do you learn about what it was trained on? That's a good question. So yeah, let me show you what that looks like. Oh, actually, we can show you via my slides because I actually published templates of these 3 activities that I showed you all. So if you click on the name here, the link to the public library activity is there. And it opens kind of like this. You can copy the link and share it with other people, but this is like the main button to click. You want to duplicate that activity, and then you can duplicate it to your homepage or a different group. That's up to you. But then you're taking that template, copying it to your workspace, and now you have a copy of the activity that you can go ahead and start using, or you can go into the activity settings and start interacting with it. It won't show you the conversation that was had in Flint for that, but you can go into the build manually and then still see like what the guidelines for Sparky are, what sorts of uploads have been added there for the guidelines, and all of the other settings, like the grading rubric and language settings and assignment settings. Yeah. Cool, Hadley. Thanks for all the questions, by the way.
Well, thank you. I'm super excited to use this. Couple quick questions. One, do you have a Campfire session on just how to set it up, like how to register the students in it and everything?
Yeah, so that should be done by your administrators, ideally. But
So like our tech guys at school, like okay.
Yeah, but I understand like some administrators haven't gotten around to it yet. So if you want some guidance on how to set that up, I can meet with you one-on-one if you want. But that is a good idea for a session. So
Okay.
yeah, because usually we have schools just directly import their rosters via like their LMS or SIS systems. Because then it's really easy. All of the groups get set up for you automatically and knows who's the teacher of the group, makes them the owner, puts the students in. So that's just like the easiest way. But yeah, if like you talk to your administrators and they like can't do it or don't have time to do it yet, feel free to come back to me and I can help you set up.
Okay, thank you. And then my second question is, what other other languages, like for example, I work in a school where there's a lot of French teachers. Can they use this for their French lessons?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. That was one example that I had to cut because I knew I wouldn't have time for it. But yeah, world language teachers love Flint. I think we have like 2 webinars from world language.
Okay.
Yeah, so that might be good to like send to them in case they're curious. But yeah, any of the activities that we made today, if you just told it like make this into a French activity, like it could change that for you. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so very much.
Yeah, of course. Thank you as well. All right. Any other questions, everyone? Or anything that you want to share about like how you've been using Flint or want to use Flint? If not, you are all free to go. Oh yeah, Ayel?
Hi, I was just experimenting with making like an ethos pathos logos quiz where the kids are looking at different persuasive strategies, and I couldn't get it to show any images. I typed in, please make a visual quiz showing advertisements and then asking students, and what it did is it gave me like a written description, like imagine a picture with a dentist holding some toothpaste. Is that a settings thing, or does it just not allow image importation?
Huh. Interesting. I feel like, have you tried using like the specific words of like generate an image for each example?
I did not type generated image. I just said create a visual quiz showing print advertisements and then asking the students to name the persuasive strategy being utilized. I did not say generate, so I could try that.
Okay, yeah. I think that might help. I guess like one caveat is like Flint would be generating a new image every time.
Right.
It's not like pulling from actual advertisements. So yeah, I would just like double check it also for quality. Like if the generated images are as like actually subscribing to like ethos, pathos, or logos as much as like actual advertisements that have been created.
Can I flip it around and give it the images and say make a quiz, but Flint's not going to know ethos, pathos, logos, I'm guessing, unless I teach it.
It might be able to. I think it depends on what images you use. If they're like really famous ones that have been written about as like, strongly leaning
Right.
towards one or the other, then it might already know. But what you could do is you could upload the images and then also like give it like a key of like this one is like ethos and this one's pathos and this one's logos.
Right.
Or like this one's like both of these. Then it will know like which one to describe to the students.
Okay, so I could give it the info and then have it make the quiz.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Let me know how it goes and if you run into any roadblocks.
Okay, awesome.
Just on that, one thing that I often do when I am creating tasks is I will upload a PDF with all the documentation in it. So if you have the images uploaded in a PDF, it might be able to read the PDF and then work from there.
Yeah. And then if it's easier, you can also have it attach that PDF to the initial message and students can, because actually when students are interacting with Flint, let me find the free body diagram one. Yeah, okay. So in here, this is maybe not the best example, but let's say like instead of having this blank one, you had like the actual quiz uploaded, like the one that I was showing earlier. This one, you could have it put that in the initial message, and then the students could have that diagram from the initial message on the right-hand side, and then as they're interacting with it on the left-hand side, they can like keep looking back, and it's like side by side for them. So yeah, then they could just like go through each image that is in the PDF and like talk about it with Flint. Yeah. Awesome. Well, yeah, thank you everyone for coming. I hope you all learned something today, and yeah, feel free to reach out to me if you have any additional questions. But yeah, thanks everyone.